Daniel remembered the words as clearly as if they had been spoken only yesterday. They were soft, almost playful, yet heavy with meaning. Those words belonged to Kayla, the friend he had once cared for more than anyone. And yet now, she was gone. Room felt too empty without her. The walls echoed with silence, the kind of silence that pressed on his chest like a weight. He sat on his bed, staring at the ceiling, remembering every small detail, her laugh, her stubbornness, the way she always reminded him that he wasn't alone, even when he felt lost. But she had moved away. To another city, another life. It wasn't her fault, he told himself. People moved, lives changed. But what hurt most was the distance that had grown between them, not just in miles, but in silence. Days turned into weeks, and still no message came. No call, no letter. Daniel checked his phone far too often, scrolling through old conversations, rereading her words just to feel close to her again. Each time he told himself he wouldn't check anymore, but his heart never listened. He wanted to reach out. He wanted to send a message to say, "I miss you. I'm still here." But something held him back. Fear. Fear that she had moved on. That she no longer thought of him the way he thought of her. Fear that she would see his words as weakness. Yet deep down, Daniel knew this fear wasn't just about her. It was about himself. Humans, he thought, were strange creatures. They held on, so tightly to those they loved, even when time and distance tried to rip them apart. The days grew heavier. Work felt dull. Meals had no taste. At night, when the stars scattered across the sky, he would sit by the window and whisper her name into the dark, wondering if somewhere out there she might whisper his too. And then came the dream. In it, Kayla stood before him, her hand outstretched, pulling him down onto the bed they had once shared stories on, back when life was simpler. She looked into his eyes and whispered, "Mine." The word was not about ownership, but about connection, a reminder that, once, their hearts had belonged to one another. And in the dream, she never let go. Daniel woke with tears on his cheeks. But instead of sadness, there was a spark of something else. Hope. He thought of what made humans different from the countless stories he had read of distant worlds and imagined species. Strength? No. Power? No. What made humans truly stand apart was their ability to keep reaching for one another, even across impossible distances. Hope was the human weapon, and hope was something Daniel refused to let go of. So, he sat down at his desk, opened his old notebook, and began to write. He wrote about the nights they had stayed awake talking until dawn. He wrote about how she had once told him that he made her feel less alone in a world that often felt too heavy. He wrote about how much he missed her voice. But he didn't write to cling. He wrote to remind. The letter grew longer than he expected. He didn't try to make it perfect. He didn't try to sound strong. He just wrote the truth. "I miss you. I hope you're okay. I'm still here if you ever need me." When he finished, he stared at the page for a long time. Fear returned, the same old fear of rejection, of silence. But then he remembered. Fear was not stronger than hope. Humans survived wars, storms, and endless trials because they chose hope over fear. So Daniel sent the letter. The days that followed were quiet. Doubt gnawed at him, whispering that he had made a mistake. That maybe she had forgotten him. That maybe the silence would be his only answer. But one evening, as he sat by the window, the screen of his phone lit up. It was her. Her message was simple, but it carried warmth he hadn't felt in so long. "I've missed you too. I didn't know how to reach out, but I'm glad you did." Daniel read the words again and again. his heart beating faster with each read. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't let go. She had been waiting, just like him. Tears came again. But this time, they weren't heavy with sorrow. They were light with relief. That night, as he lay on his bed, Daniel closed his eyes and whispered the words that had haunted him for so long. The words that had once been a memory of loss, but were now a reminder of hope. The screen glowed in the dark, and Daniel still couldn't believe the message he was reading. I've missed you too. I didn't know how to reach out, but I'm glad you did. He read it over and over, like a thirsty traveler drinking water drop by drop. For weeks, he had doubted, hesitated, and almost given up. But here it was. Proof that Kyla hadn't forgotten. Proof that the bond between them was not broken, only sleeping. Daniel's hands trembled slightly as he typed back. But then he stopped. What should he say? His heart was racing, full of words he wanted to pour out, yet his mind froze. He didn't want to scare her with too much. He didn't want to push her away again, so he typed only 3 words. I'm still here, and pressed send. The next day felt lighter. For the first time in weeks, Daniel woke up with a smile. He carried her words with him like a shield against the loneliness. At work, the noise of machines and the chatter of co-workers didn't feel as heavy. On the bus ride home, the street seemed brighter. Even the sky, gray with clouds, felt less suffocating. It amazed him how one message, just a few simple words, could change so much. That was the human heart. Fragile in some ways, but stronger than steel when fueled by connection. Yet doubt crept in again at night. Would she reply again? Or was that single message all she had to give? Daniel sat by the window, staring at the stars. The distance between them stretched wider than the night sky. It wasn't just miles. It was silence, uncertainty, and the changes life brought. He whispered into the glass, "How do I reach you?" Days passed. She replied only once more. "How have you been?" Daniel answered honestly. He told her about the small things, the books he had been reading, the songs he had listened to, the walks he took when the world felt too heavy. But he left out the darker parts, the nights when loneliness pressed too hard, the mornings where getting out of bed felt like a battle. He didn't want her to worry, but he wanted her to know he was still fighting. That's what humans did. Best, they kept going, even when their hearts ached. One evening, Daniel found himself staring at their old photos. 2 faces, smiling at places that no longer seemed real. They had laughed so much back then. It felt like another lifetime. He wanted that again. But how? He picked up his notebook and began writing again. This time not a letter, but memories, little fragments of moments they had shared, like the time she teased him for always drinking tea too slowly, or the night they stayed awake just to count how many stars they could see before dawn. Each word was a reminder that what they had was real. Not perfect, not eternal, but real, and real things could be rebuilt. Then an idea came to him. Humans had always used stories to bridge distances, from cave paintings to letters carried across oceans. Maybe a story could reach her in ways a simple message could not. So Daniel began writing a tale about a traveler lost in the stars, searching for a voice he could never forget. A tale about finding light in darkness, about not giving up even when the path seemed endless. He didn't write her name, but he didn't need to. The story carried her in every line. When it was finished, he hesitated again. Should he send it? What if she didn't understand? What if she thought it was foolish? But then he reminded himself, fear never built bridges. Hope did. So he sent it. Hours passed. Then a day. Then 2. Silence. The doubt returned, sharper this time. Maybe she had. read it and put her phone aside. Maybe life had swallowed her again. Maybe she had no time for him anymore. But even as the doubts whispered, Daniel reminded himself why he wrote. Not for a reply, not for comfort, but because humans reach out, even when they don't know what will come back. That was the beauty of it. On the third day, a reply finally came. I read your story. It made me cry. Thank you. I didn't know how much I needed that. Daniel's chest tightened, but this time with relief. She had heard him. Not just his words, but his heart. He typed back. That's why I wrote it. So you'd know I still believe in us, no matter the distance. For a long time there was no reply. But Daniel didn't despair this time. Something in him had shifted. He understood now. Humans weren't defined by how quickly they got what they wanted, but by their ability to keep trying, even in uncertainty. Even if she never came back fully, even if their bond stayed faint across the miles, Daniel knew he would always carry hope. Because hope was what made him human. That night, as he lay down, the dream came again. Kyla's hand reached for him, pulling him close. Her whisper filled the silence. Mine. But this time, Daniel didn't wake with sorrow. He woke with strength, because he knew that the word wasn't about ownership. It was about connection. A reminder that somewhere, somehow, their bond had marked them both, and no distance could erase that. Daniel sat at his desk, staring at her last message. On the glowing screen, I read your story. It made me cry. Thank you. I didn't know how much I needed that. Those words meant more to him than she could ever know. Yet, after the warmth of reading them, silence followed again. He tried not to feel discouraged, but each day that passed, without a reply, felt like another mile added to the distance between them. He told himself not to check his phone too often, but his hand always betrayed him. He would glance at the screen, half hoping to see her name appear. Nothing. Still, Daniel refused to give in to despair. He had lived long enough to know that life often built walls between people, but humans had a way of climbing walls, breaking barriers, and finding paths back to one another. That was his defiance. Not loud, not angry, but steady. So he kept writing. Every night, after work, he would fill pages of his notebook, stories, memories, small details of his days, things he wished he could share with her face to face. He didn't send them all, but he kept them safe, as if saving little gifts for the future. Sometimes, he wondered if she was also writing, in her own way. Perhaps she kept journals she never showed him. Perhaps she whispered his name in the dark, as he did hers. The thought comforted him. One evening, Daniel decided to send something new. Not a story this time, but a song. He had always been clumsy with instruments, but he remembered an old tune she loved. So he recorded himself humming it softly, letting the notes carry his heart where words could not. He hesitated before sending. Fear rising again. Would she think it silly? But then he remembered. Human connection was never about perfection. It was about honesty. He pressed send. The reply came later that night. You still remember that song? I didn't think anyone did. Daniel smiled. His heart felt lighter, even though the words were simple. It was proof that she remembered too. Proof that their bond hadn't faded into nothing. He typed back. Some things are impossible to forget. But even with these small exchanges, Daniel still felt the gap between them. He wanted more. He wanted to sit beside her again, to hear her laugh not through memory, but in real time. He wanted to look into her eyes and know she was still the same Kayla who once whispered mine. The desire grew heavy, but he refused to let sadness bury him. Instead, he turned his longing into action. Humans had always done that, transforming pain into strength, distance into determination. So he began planning. Daniel researched the city she had moved to, He studied maps, transport routes, even small cafes where she might spend time. He wasn't planning to surprise her. No, that would be unfair. But he wanted to understand her world, to feel closer, even from afar. In a way, it was like preparing for a journey across the stars. He couldn't leap there in an instant, but he could learn, prepare, and keep hope alive. One night, he wrote her again. "Do you remember when we used to dream about traveling the world? You always said you'd take me to see the ocean first." For hours, there was no reply. Then his phone buzzed. "Yes, I still want that." Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time, she had written something that spoke of the future, not just the past. It was a small light, but humans had always followed small lights through the darkest nights. Still, the silence returned. Days stretched with no further messages. Daniel fought the familiar ache of waiting, but he did not give up. Instead, he began sending little pieces of hope into the silence. A picture of the night sky from his window, a short poem he wrote on a tired evening, a silly joke that once made her laugh. He never demanded a reply. He just kept the bridge alive, one plank at a time, because that was human defiance, refusing to let silence win. Weeks later, another message appeared. "I've been so busy. Life feels heavy. But your messages help me breathe again." Daniel stared at those words and tears welled in his eyes. She needed him too. She hadn't forgotten. She hadn't let go. She was just caught in her own battles, as everyone was. He typed back, "That's why I keep sending them. Because I believe in us, no matter what." That night, Daniel felt a quiet strength inside him. He realized that reconnection wasn't always sudden or easy. Sometimes it was slow, fragile, and uncertain. But that was okay. Humans didn't give up because something was difficult. They endured. They reached. They hoped. Daniel closed his eyes and let himself drift into sleep. And once again, the dream came. Kayla's hand reaching out, pulling him close. Her whisper, soft and certain. "Mine." Only this time, he didn't wake with sorrow or longing. He woke with determination. Because he knew the word wasn't about ownership. It was about belonging. And no matter how far apart they were, no matter how heavy life became, they still belonged to one another in some way. That truth gave him hope. And hope was the strongest weapon humans had ever carried. Daniel's phone buzzed late at night. He blinked awake, heart racing, and reached for it. It was her. "Sometimes I think it's better if we don't talk so much. Maybe the distance will hurt less that way." Daniel sat up in bed, the words cutting deep. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He read them again and again, each time feeling the weight press heavier on his chest. She was pulling away. He stared at the screen for a long time, unsure what to say. His first instinct was fear, the fear of losing her completely. The silence of weeks past had been hard, but this felt worse. It was deliberate. But then he remembered the choice he had made, not to give in to fear. So he took a deep breath and typed back, "Maybe the distance hurts, but silence hurts more. I'd rather feel the pain of missing you than the emptiness of losing you." He pressed send before doubt could stop him. The reply didn't come right away. He sat awake in the dim glow of his phone, waiting, hoping. Finally, her message arrived. "You always fight back." "I don't know how you do it." Daniel's lips curved into a small smile. That was exactly it. This was his defiance. Not anger, not force, but hope that refused to die. He typed, "It's what humans do. We fight even when we feel weak, especially then." The days that followed felt like a tug of war. Sometimes Kayla replied warmly, with small memories or kind words. Other times, her messages grew colder, shorter, as if she wanted to push him away. Daniel didn't blame her. Moving away had changed her life. New routines, new people, new struggles he couldn't see. It was easier for her to build walls. But he couldn't. He wouldn't. One night, Kayla wrote, "Why do you keep trying? Don't you see? I'm far away now. You can't change that." Daniel's hands trembled as he typed his reply. "I know I can't change the distance, but I can change the silence. That's what makes us human. We don't stop reaching just because the path is hard." He sent it and closed his eyes. His heart pounded with fear, but also with pride. Her reply came slower this time. Hours later. "You make it sound simple, but it isn't simple for me." Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the words. He felt the sadness behind them, the heaviness she carried, and in that moment, he realized something. This wasn't just about him missing her. It was about her struggling to hold on too. He typed softly, "I don't need it to be simple. I just need us to keep trying, even little by little. That's enough." The clash between them wasn't shouting or anger. It was quieter, a test of patience, of endurance. Kayla pulled back, and Daniel reached forward. She closed doors, and he knocked gently, again and again. Some nights, he wondered if he was being foolish, if hope was just a way of hurting himself. But then he remembered. Hope had always been humanity's greatest strength. Without it, people would never have crossed oceans, built cities, or reached the stars. Why should he give it up now? Days later, Kayla wrote again. "I don't understand you. Most people would give up by now." Daniel smiled at the message. His fingers moved quickly across the keys. "That's why I'm not most people." That night, he dreamed again. Kayla's hand reached for him, pulling him close. He heard her whisper, soft but firm, "Mine." But this time, the dream didn't feel like a memory of the past. It felt like a battle in the present. Her whisper wasn't just a claim. It was a question. Would he keep choosing her, even when she tried to push him away? And in the dream, Daniel whispered back, "Always." When he woke, he felt tired but steady. The clash between them wasn't over. Maybe it never would be. But he understood something now. Love, friendship, any deep bond wasn't about things being easy. It was about choosing again and again, even when it was hard. That was his defiance. That was humanity's defiance. Weeks passed, and their messages grew uneven. Some days, silence. Some days, laughter. Some days, questions like shadows. Are we still the same people we used to be? Daniel never promised that things hadn't changed. He only promised that the bond between them still mattered. One evening, she sent him another heavy message. "I don't know if I can keep this up. It feels like we're fighting the distance every day." Daniel's chest tightened, but his reply came quickly. "We are fighting it. But we're still here. That means we're winning." Kayla didn't reply for a long time, but when she did, her message was softer than before. "You're stubborn." Daniel smiled. His heart felt lighter. "Yes," he typed back. "And I'll stay stubborn as long as it takes." That night, as he lay in bed, Daniel whispered the words to himself again, the ones that had once felt like a haunting, but now felt like a vow. "She drew me onto the bed, whispered mine, and refused to release me." This time, he didn't hear them as a chain. He heard them as a reminder. Even if she struggled, even if she pulled away, deep down she hadn't let go either. And because of that, neither would he. That was hope. That was humanity. Daniel had grown used to waiting. The silence between Kayla's replies no longer crushed him the way it once did. It still hurt, yes, but he had learned to breathe through the emptiness. Some nights, he would sit at his desk and look at the old notebook filled with words he never sent. Memories, poems, fragments of hope. They were his quiet way of holding on. But lately, he had noticed something different in her messages. A heaviness. A tiredness he could not see but could feel in the way her words came slower, shorter, like a candle flickering in the wind. "Life is hard," she had written one evening. "Some days I feel like I'm drowning. I don't even know how to explain it." Daniel stared at those words for a long time. His first instinct was to say something hopeful, something strong. But then he stopped. Maybe what she needed wasn't answers. Maybe she just needed someone to listen, so he typed, "You don't have to explain. I'll still listen." And pressed send. Her reply didn't come until the next day. "Everyone else tells me to be stronger. You just let me be." "Thank you." Daniel's chest tightened. He realized then that his strength wasn't in trying to fix her problems or pretending he could erase the distance. His strength was in empathy, in simply being there, even through silence and screens. That was humanity's secret weapon. From that night on, his messages changed. Instead of always trying to pull her into the past they once shared, he asked about her present. "How was your day? Did you eat something good? What made you smile today, even just a little?" Sometimes her answers were short. Sometimes she didn't reply at all. But when she did, he read her words carefully, like they were fragile glass he had to hold with care. One evening, after a long silence, Kayla sent a message that surprised him. "I don't know why I keep replying. Maybe I'm scared you'll give up if I don't." Daniel read it slowly. A part of him ached at her doubt, but another part of him smiled gently. He typed back, "I won't give up. Not because I need replies, but because I care. That doesn't go away, even when things are quiet." Her reply came quickly this time. "You're impossible." Daniel laughed softly to himself. Impossible. Maybe she meant it as frustration. But to him, it sounded like proof that his stubborn hope was breaking through her walls. Days turned into weeks. Their exchanges were uneven, sometimes light, sometimes heavy, sometimes silent. But Daniel held on, always steady. One night, Kyla wrote, "Do you remember when I told you that you make the world feel less empty? I didn't think it was true until now." Daniel's heart swelled. He typed, "That's what humans do best. We make the dark a little less dark, together." The next weekend, Daniel recorded another song for her. This time, not just humming. He found an old guitar, strummed a few shaky chords, and sang softly into his phone. His voice cracked. The notes weren't perfect, but it was real. He sent it before he could change his mind. The reply came almost an hour later. "You're terrible at guitar." Daniel laughed out loud. Then another message appeared. "But I couldn't. Stop listening. It made me feel safe." His eyes stung with tears. It wasn't perfection she needed. It was presence. And that he could give. Slowly, Kyla began opening up more. She told him about the city she now lived in, the crowded trains, the quiet cafes where she sometimes read, the loneliness of walking through streets where no one knew her name. Daniel listened to every word. He didn't interrupt with solutions. He just made sure she knew she wasn't invisible. One night, she confessed, "Sometimes I think no one really sees me anymore. I feel like I've disappeared." Daniel took a deep breath before replying, "I see you. I always have. Even from here. You're not invisible to me." The reply came fast this time. "Why do you care so much?" Daniel smiled at the screen, his fingers moving slowly. "Because that's what it means to be human. We hold on to people who matter, no matter the distance." That night, he dreamed again. Kayla's hand reached out, pulling him close. Her whisper echoed in the silence. Mine. But this time, the dream felt different. It wasn't about being trapped. It was about being chosen. Her whisper sounded less like chains and more like a confession. When he woke, he felt hope blooming, stronger than ever. The days that followed grew lighter. Kayla still had her silences, her doubts, her walls. But Daniel no longer feared them. He had discovered the secret. He didn't have to break the walls. He just had to stay beside them until she was ready to step through. And slowly, she was. One evening she wrote, "You're the only person who hasn't let me go. Maybe that's why I can't let go either." Daniel closed his eyes, letting the words sink deep into his heart. He typed back, "Then hold on, even if it's just by a thread. Threads can still carry us through the dark." As he set his phone down, Daniel felt a quiet pride. His sadness hadn't vanished. The distance still hurt, but he had turned his pain into something stronger, into empathy, into hope, into proof that humans could endure separation without letting love fade. That was his gift. That was humanity's secret weapon. And no matter how far Kayla was, he would keep carrying that light for both of them. Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the soft glow of his phone. It had been a long day, but he still felt the familiar pull of waiting. Waiting for Kayla to reply. Waiting for the connection that had never truly faded. Her last message had been short, almost hesitant. "I'm not sure I know who I am without all this distance. I feel lost sometimes." Daniel read it over and over. Her words were heavy, but they carried a flicker of trust. She had admitted vulnerability. That was rare. That was progress. He typed slowly, carefully, not trying to fix her, but to reach her. "It's okay to feel lost. We're all finding our way. You're not alone. I'm still here, every step you take." He pressed send and leaned back in his chair. The fear lingered, but hope, that quiet, stubborn human hope, burned brighter. The next day, Kayla's reply came unexpectedly. "You never give up, do you? Even when I try to push you away." Daniel smiled. He could almost hear her voice. In the words, "Not when it matters." Humans are like that. We keep reaching, even when it's hard. Especially then. There was silence after that. Hours stretched. Daniel's chest felt tight, but he didn't panic. Humans had endured worse. Wars, storms, loss, betrayal. Yet they kept going. This was just another test. Later, Daniel decided to take action beyond words. He sent her small pictures of things he knew she loved. A sunset he captured on his evening walk, a flower blooming. Outside his window, even a small doodle he had drawn. Each image was a gentle reminder. "I'm still here. I remember you. I care." She responded slowly, cautiously, with, "I didn't think you'd keep noticing these little things." Daniel felt a warmth bloom in his chest. It was working. Small, quiet moments, carrying hope and care, were breaking through her walls. "Some things are too important to forget," he typed. "Some people too important to let go." Days passed, and the tide slowly turned. Kayla began opening up more about her life. She shared the frustrations of her new city, the challenges at work, the quiet loneliness she tried to hide. She even sent small jokes and silly observations that reminded him of the laughter they had shared in the past. Daniel listened. He didn't correct her, argue, or try to solve her problems. He simply held the space for her. That was enough. That was the human gift. "You make the dark feel lighter," she admitted in one message. "Then let's keep walking through it together," he replied. One evening, Kayla sent a longer message than usual. I don't know why I keep doing this, letting you in. I thought the distance would make it easier to stop caring, but it hasn't. And now, I don't know what to do with that. Daniel paused before replying. Her words were fragile, like glass. One wrong move could shatter them. But he had learned how to handle fragility. Humans had endured fragile things before. Trust, hearts, lives, and still moved forward. He typed, "You don't have to decide. Now, you just have to know that I'm here. No pressure, no expectations. Just here. And if we keep moving forward together, even a little at a time, we'll find our way." Her reply was hours later, but it felt different. "You make it sound simple, but maybe it's possible." Daniel's heart leapt. Not because the words solved everything, but because they showed change. She was questioning herself, her walls, her fear. And questioning was the first step to crossing the bridge he had been holding up for her. "It is possible," he typed. "Because we are humans. We find ways when we care." That night, Daniel dreamed. Once again, Kayla's hand reached for him. Once again, he heard her whisper, "Mine." But this time, it wasn't a possessive claim. It wasn't about control or fear. It was a question. Would he stay? And Daniel answered in the dream, "Always." He woke with a quiet certainty. No matter the distance, no matter the doubts, he would remain steadfast. That was what humans did. That was what hope did. That was what HFY, humanity, first yes, truly meant. The following week, Kyla sent another message. "I don't know why I feel so nervous talking to you. I feel like I'm supposed to let go. But I can't." Daniel typed slowly, deliberately, "Then don't. You don't have to. Let's just be here, together. Step by step. We'll figure it out. That's what humans do best. We keep going." Her reply came quickly this time. "You're impossible. But I think I like that." Daniel laughed softly. He felt the tension in his chest ease, replaced by warmth and hope. He had reached her, not completely, but enough. Enough to keep the connection alive. Enough to let her see the light she had hidden from herself. That night, as he lay on his bed, Daniel whispered once more the words that had guided him through months of uncertainty. "She drew me onto the bed, whispered mine, and refused to release me.